The first rule of the dark web is simple. If something finds you first, it was never random. Before we begin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment if you want more true dark horror stories like this. Now turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen carefully, because some doors should never be opened. Part 1. The link that wasn't meant to open. My name is Ethan Vale, and 3 years ago, I worked nights as a freelance data cleaner. It wasn't exciting work. Companies sent me corrupted files, strange databases, old server backups, and I repaired whatever I could. Most nights were silent. Just me, my laptop, cold coffee, and the soft hum of my apartment heater. Then one rainy Thursday night, I received an email with no subject. There was no sender name, no company signature, no greeting, only one line. "We found your brother." I stared at the screen for almost a full minute. My brother, Daniel, had been missing for 6 years. He disappeared after leaving a college party in northern Vermont. His phone was found near a bridge. His car was still parked outside his dorm. No witnesses, no ransom, no goodbye note. The police searched woods, rivers, abandoned cabins, and highways for months. Nothing. Eventually, everyone accepted the same painful answer. Daniel was gone. But I never did. My hands started shaking as I clicked the email. Below the message was a link made of random letters and numbers. It didn't look like a normal website. At first, I thought it was some cruel scam, maybe someone trying to get money from families of missing people. I should have deleted it. Instead, I opened a secure browser. The page loaded slowly. At first, it was just black. Then white text appeared in the center of the screen. "Welcome, Ethan." My heart dropped. I hadn't typed my name anywhere. Another line appeared. "Do you want to see Daniel?" There were 2 buttons beneath it. Yes, no. I moved my cursor toward no, but before I clicked, a small video window opened by itself. The footage was grainy, almost black and white. It showed a narrow room with concrete walls. A single chair sat beneath a hanging light. The camera angle was high, like it had been mounted in the corner. Then someone walked into frame. He was thinner, older, and his hair was longer. But I knew that face. Daniel. I stopped breathing. He sat in the chair slowly, like someone had ordered him to. His eyes looked empty, tired, terrified. Then he turned his head toward the camera and whispered, "Ethan, don't answer them." The video cut off. A chat box opened. "User, do you believe us now?" I couldn't type. My fingers were frozen. Another message appeared. "User, you have been selected for a recovery process. Follow the instructions and your brother may come home." I finally typed back, "Who are you?" The reply came instantly. "User, we are the people who kept him alive." My stomach twisted. Then they sent me an address. Not a street address. Coordinates. Underneath they wrote, "Go there tomorrow night at 11:40 p.m. Come alone. Bring no phone. Tell no police. If you fail, Daniel disappears forever." I copied the coordinates and pasted them into a map. The location was deep inside a forested area 2 hours away from my city. No buildings nearby. No marked roads. Just trees, old mining paths, and empty land. I told myself it was fake. I told myself the video could be edited. But I watched it again. And again. And again. On the 5th replay, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Behind Daniel, scratched into the concrete wall, were 3 words. "Hear no static." I didn't understand what it meant. Then my laptop speakers crackled. A low burst of static filled my apartment. I jumped back from the desk. The screen went black again. One final message appeared. "We are already listening." Then the website closed by itself. My room became silent. Too silent. The rain had stopped. The heater had stopped. Even the old clock above my kitchen seemed quieter than before. Then, from somewhere inside my apartment, I heard my brother's voice. Very softly. "Ethan." It came from the hallway. I stood up, barely able to move. "Daniel?" I whispered. The hallway was dark. And then the voice answered again. But this time it was much closer. "Don't turn around." End of part 1. Part 2, the voice in the hallway. I froze where I stood. Every muscle in my body locked as the voice echoed from the darkness beyond my living room. "Don't turn around." It sounded exactly like Daniel. Not similar. Not close. Exactly. Same calm tone. Same roughness in his throat. Even the slight stutter he developed when he got nervous. For a second, my brain refused to process reality. My chest tightened so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. I stared at the hallway entrance while the apartment remained completely silent. Then I realized something even worse. The voice hadn't come from far away. It came from directly behind me. A cold wave rushed through my body. Slowly, I looked down toward the dark reflection on my laptop screen. There was something standing in the hallway. Tall. Unnaturally tall. Its head nearly touched the ceiling. I spun around instantly. Nothing was there. The hallway was empty. The kitchen light flickered once, buzzing softly overhead. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy glass bottle from the counter, and backed toward the wall. My breathing became shallow and uneven. "Daniel?" I called again. No answer. Only silence. Then my laptop dinged. A new notification appeared on the screen even though the browser had closed. Unknown user sent one file. The file name was simple. watch_me.mp4. I didn't want to open it, but I did. The video started immediately. This time the footage was clearer. A man held the camera while walking through a dark hallway lined with concrete walls. The image shook slightly with every step. Somewhere nearby, metal scraped against metal. The person filming whispered, "Subject 14 is becoming unstable." Another voice answered from farther away, "Keep recording." The cameraman turned a corner, and I nearly screamed. Daniel sat chained to a chair inside a tiny room. His face was bruised. His eyes darted wildly toward the camera, then toward something standing behind it, something the video never fully showed. Daniel started breathing harder. "No," he whispered. The cameraman stepped closer. Daniel suddenly looked directly into the lens. "If Ethan sees this," he said shakily, "tell him not to come here. They're not people anymore." A loud metallic bang echoed somewhere off-screen. Daniel flinched violently. Then the lights above him flickered. For less than a second, another figure appeared standing beside him. Tall, extremely thin. Its skin looked pale gray beneath the flashing light. But the worst part was its face. It had none. Just smooth skin stretched across where the eyes and mouth should have been. The screen cut to black. I slammed the laptop shut. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I would throw up. This wasn't a prank anymore. Nobody could fake fear like that. I barely slept that night. Every sound inside the apartment kept pulling me awake. Pipes creaking. The elevator moving upstairs. Water dripping somewhere in the kitchen. At 3:13 a.m., I woke up suddenly to a soft static sound. I sat upright immediately. The noise came from my bedroom television. Except it wasn't plugged in. Gray static covered the screen. Then words slowly appeared inside the distortion. 11:40 p.m. Don't be late. The TV shut off. I didn't sleep again after that. The next morning, I tried convincing myself to call the police. I even picked up my phone twice. But every time I thought about Daniel sitting in that room, terrified and alive somewhere, I stopped. By evening, the storm clouds had returned. Rain hammered the streets as I packed a flashlight, a pocket knife, and an old revolver my father once kept locked away in a toolbox. At exactly 9:50 p.m., I left my apartment. The coordinates led me farther north than I expected. Roads became narrower. Streetlights disappeared. Forest replaced buildings. Eventually, my GPS lost signal completely. I parked near a rusted gate surrounded by broken fencing. Beyond it stretched miles of trees and darkness. The rain had stopped, but fog drifted low across the ground. I checked the paper where I'd written the coordinates. This was the place. There was no road ahead. Only an old dirt path disappearing into the woods. I grabbed my flashlight and started walking. The deeper I went, the quieter the forest became. No insects, no wind, no animals. Just my footsteps crunching against wet leaves. After almost 20 minutes, I saw lights ahead through the trees. A structure emerged from the fog. An abandoned radio tower. It rose above the forest like a giant black needle. Rusted wires hung from broken poles around it, swaying gently even though there was no wind. At the base of the tower sat a small concrete building. One dim light glowed inside, and the door was already open. My pulse hammered in my ears as I approached. That's when I noticed the writing painted across the outer wall. 3 words. The same words from the video. Hear no static. Then from somewhere high above me, the tower speakers crackled to life, and Daniel's voice echoed through the forest. Someone followed you. End of part 2. Part 3, the things beneath the tower. I stopped walking immediately. The voice booming from the tower speakers echoed through the trees again. Someone followed you. The sound crackled with heavy static between each word, making Daniel's voice feel warped, wrong. I turned around quickly, shining my flashlight into the forest behind me. Nothing. Just fog drifting between the trees. But deep down, I knew the message wasn't a warning. It was a threat. The rusted tower groaned overhead as the speakers suddenly shut off. Silence returned instantly, thicker than before. Then I heard footsteps. Not behind me. Inside the concrete building. Slow. Dragging. I tightened my grip around the revolver and stepped toward the open doorway. The smell hit me first. Wet metal. Rotting wood. And something else underneath it. Something sour and old. My flashlight beam moved across cracked walls covered in faded warning signs and broken radio equipment. Wires hung from the ceiling like vines. At the center of the room sat an old desk with several monitors stacked on top of each other. Every screen showed static. Except one. The center monitor displayed live security footage. Of me. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The camera angle came from somewhere above the tower entrance, meaning they had been watching me since I arrived. Then the image suddenly changed. The screen now showed another part of the forest. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Then the figure stepped forward into clearer view. A man wearing a dark raincoat stood motionless between the trees. His face was hidden beneath a hood, but he was holding something in his right hand. A camera. He was filming me. My heart started pounding harder. Daniel's voice returned through hidden speakers somewhere inside the building. He's getting closer. I spun around. Daniel? Where are you? No answer. Only static. Then another voice spoke instead. Lower level. The voice was deep. Come. Almost mechanical. A loud metallic click echoed nearby. One of the walls slowly shifted open. Behind it was a staircase descending underground. Cold air poured upward from the darkness below. I should have run. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to leave that place immediately. But Daniel was down there. Or at least, I thought he was. I aimed the flashlight down the stairs and slowly descended. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. Concrete walls surrounded the stairwell, stained with dark marks that looked almost black beneath the weak light. At the bottom was another hallway. This one looked newer. Metal doors lined both sides, each marked with faded numbers. And then, the same number from the video. Subject 14. My breathing became uneven as I approached the door. I grabbed the handle carefully and pulled. The room inside was empty. The chair from the video still sat beneath the hanging light. Chains dangled from the armrests. Fresh scratches covered the concrete floor, like something heavy had been dragged away recently. Then I noticed writing carved into the wall beside the chair. Not painted. Scratched by hand. Over and over again. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. My flashlight flickered. A low static noise filled the hallway outside. Then came the footsteps again. Closer this time. I backed away from the chair slowly and stepped into the hallway. At the far end, something stood in the darkness. Tall. Too thin. Its arms hung almost to its knees. And its face. Smooth skin stretched over where the eyes should have been. Exactly like the thing from the video. It tilted its head slowly toward me. Then the static exploded through hidden speakers around the hallway. Pain shot through my ears instantly. I dropped to one knee, covering my head as the sound intensified. The creature began moving toward me. Not walking. Jerking forward unnaturally fast. I pulled the revolver and fired. The gunshot thundered through the corridor. The creature stumbled sideways into the wall. But it didn't bleed. It didn't even react normally. Instead, its head snapped sharply toward me. Then every speaker in the hallway screamed at once. Not static anymore. Human voices. Dozens of them. Crying. Begging. Screaming. I staggered backward in panic. Then through all the noise, I heard Daniel's voice clearly. Ethan, run. The lights overhead shut off instantly. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Something grabbed my arm. Ice-cold fingers wrapped around my wrist. I fired blindly into the dark. The grip vanished. Then emergency red lights flickered on overhead. And I realized the hallway was suddenly empty. The creature was gone. But at the far end of the corridor, door 15 had opened. A dim light glowed inside. And someone stood there watching me. A human silhouette. Thin. Weak. Shaking. Then the figure stepped slightly into the light. It was Daniel. But when he smiled, I realized something was horribly wrong with his face. End of part 3. Part 4. The smile wasn't human. For one horrible second I couldn't move. Daniel stood inside room 15 beneath the flickering red emergency lights, staring directly at me. But his smile. It stretched far too wide across his face. Not natural. Not human. The corners of his mouth twitched upward unnaturally high, exposing teeth that looked too sharp beneath the dim light. My chest tightened. Daniel? I whispered. He tilted his head slowly. Then he spoke in a voice that sounded layered, like two people talking at once. You came. The hallway lights buzzed violently overhead. I took a cautious step forward, revolver still shaking in my hand. Daniel, what happened to you? For a moment, his expression changed. The terrible smile faded slightly, and I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Don't let them hear you, he whispered quickly. Then his body jerked violently, like something inside him had pulled a string. The smile returned instantly. They're awake now. Every monitor mounted along the hallway walls suddenly turned on at once. Static exploded across the screens. Then faces began appearing inside the distortion. Dozens of faces. Men, women, old recordings. Some crying, some screaming, some completely still. And all of them repeated the same sentence. Can you hear it too? The lights dimmed again. Then a loud metallic slam echoed somewhere deep underground. Daniel's eyes widened in terror. They opened the lower gate. Before I could respond, he grabbed my arm suddenly and pulled me into room 15. The door slammed shut behind us. Darkness swallowed the room except for a weak red light glowing from a corner monitor. I aimed the flashlight around quickly. The room looked different from the others. This wasn't a holding cell. It looked more like a control room. Old computers lined the walls beside tangled cables and recording equipment. Thousands of cassette tapes were stacked floor to ceiling. Every label had a date. Some were recent. Others were over 30 years old. What is this place? I asked. Daniel locked the door with shaking hands. They call it the Frequency Archive. What does that even mean? He swallowed hard before answering. They found something in the radio signals years ago. Something hidden beneath the static. I stared at him. You're not making sense. They thought it was random noise at first, he continued quietly. But then the voices started answering back. A low thump echoed somewhere above us. Daniel flinched instantly. They listened for too long, he whispered. And eventually, the static started changing them. My mind flashed back to the faceless creature in the hallway. That thing. Daniel nodded slowly. They used to be people. The room suddenly crackled with interference. One of the monitors turned on by itself. Static filled the screen. Then text appeared. Subject 14 has breached containment. Daniel's breathing became uneven. They know I helped you. The monitor changed again. Now it displayed live footage from the hallway outside. At first it looked empty. Then shapes began emerging from the darkness. 3 of them. Tall, thin, moving with those same unnatural jerking motions. The faceless things. They stopped directly outside the door. Listening. One of them slowly tilted its head toward the camera. Then the door handle began turning. Daniel grabbed my shoulder hard. We have to move now. He rushed toward the back wall and pulled aside a large shelf of tapes. Behind it was another hidden passage descending even deeper underground. Cold air drifted upward carrying the faint smell of wet earth and rust. You've been down there? I asked. Daniel looked pale. I escaped from there. Something slammed against the door behind us. The metal bent inward slightly. Another impact followed immediately after. Boom, boom, boom. The creatures outside weren't trying to open it anymore. They were trying to break through. Daniel shoved a flashlight into my hands. No matter what happens, he said, if you start hearing whispers that sound familiar, don't answer them. The door behind us buckled violently. A long crack split across the metal. I could hear distorted breathing outside now. What? Animal-like. Daniel pulled me toward the hidden staircase. As we descended, the sounds above us suddenly stopped. Complete silence. Then a voice echoed softly through the darkness above. My mother's voice. Ethan, please help me. I froze instantly. My mother died 8 years ago. Daniel grabbed me hard. Don't listen. The voice came again, crying this time. Ethan, it hurts. Tears instantly filled my eyes before I could stop them. It sounded exactly like her. Every detail perfect. Then another voice joined it. My father. Then old friends. Then dozens more. The staircase filled with familiar voices calling my name from the darkness above us. Begging, crying, screaming. Daniel practically dragged me downward as the whispers became louder and louder. Finally, we reached the bottom level. And what I saw there made my blood run cold. The underground chamber was enormous, far larger than the tower above. Massive radio antennas filled the room from floor to ceiling, connected by endless wires disappearing into darkness. At the center stood a giant circular machine humming with static energy, and surrounding it, were hundreds of people standing perfectly still in silence, facing us, every single one smiling. End of part 4. Part 5, the people who stopped blinking. I couldn't breathe. Hundreds of people stood around the massive machine in total silence, all facing directly toward us. None of them moved. None of them blinked. The chamber stretched far beyond what should have been possible beneath the old radio tower. Rusted antennas rose upward into darkness while giant cables snaked across the floor like black veins. And every single person down there was smiling. The same unnatural smile. What? Empty. Wrong. My flashlight shook violently in my hand. Daniel, I whispered. Who are they? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly backed away from the staircase entrance. They listened too long. The static humming through the chamber grew louder. At the center of the room stood the machine itself, a giant circular structure made of tangled metal rings spinning slowly around a glowing core of white noise. It sounded like thousands of overlapping radio signals fighting against each other, voices hidden inside static, whispers buried beneath distortion. The longer I listened, the more words I almost understood. Then one of the smiling people twitched, just slightly. A woman near the front jerked her head sharply toward me. Crack. The sound echoed across the chamber. Then another person moved. And another. Soon dozens of heads were twitching unnaturally in our direction. Daniel grabbed my arm immediately. Don't stare into their eyes. What happens if I do? His expression turned pale. They start hearing you. Before I could ask what that meant, a deep voice echoed through hidden speakers overhead. Subject 14 has returned. Every smiling person in the chamber slowly turned toward Daniel at the exact same time. Hundreds of synchronized movements. The sound of necks cracking filled the underground room. Then the voice spoke again. You brought him exactly where we wanted. Daniel stepped backward. No. The machine at the center suddenly pulsed brighter. A violent burst of static exploded through the chamber. Pain shot through my skull instantly. I dropped to one knee, covering my ears as whispers flooded my mind. Not from outside. From inside my head. Ethan. Look at us. You already hear it. The smiling crowd began walking toward us slowly. Not running. Not speaking. Just moving together in silence. Daniel pulled me up hard. Move. We ran along the outer edge of the chamber while the crowd followed behind us with slow synchronized footsteps. The sound was horrifying. Hundreds of shoes scraping across concrete in perfect rhythm. The machine pulsed again. This time the lights overhead flickered violently. For a split second I saw something standing inside the glowing static core. A shape. Tall. Impossible to fully understand. Like my eyes physically couldn't process what I was seeing. Then the light stabilized again. And the figure vanished. Daniel shoved open a metal door on the far side of the chamber. We stumbled into another corridor lined with old server racks and broken equipment. He slammed the door shut behind us and pushed a heavy cabinet against it. The footsteps outside continued approaching. Slow. Patient. They're connected to the signal now, Daniel said breathlessly. What signal? He looked at me desperately. The static isn't random noise. It's alive. I stared at him. That's impossible. That's what they said when they found it. He pointed toward the underground chamber behind us. This place was a Cold War research station before it became whatever it is now. They were trying to contact foreign frequencies, secret transmissions, psychological experiments. Then they found something buried inside the radio bands. A loud bang shook the barricaded door. The smiling people had reached us. Daniel continued quickly. At first it just copied voices, then behaviors, then memories. Another bang. Dust fell from the ceiling. And eventually, he whispered, it learned how to copy people. My stomach dropped. The faceless creatures, the voices, the smiles. None of them were human anymore. The lights flickered again. And suddenly every monitor in the corridor turned on at once. Static filled the screens. Then one image appeared. Security footage. Of my apartment. My blood froze. The footage showed my living room exactly as I left it. Except someone was standing inside. Someone wearing my clothes. My face. It looked directly into the camera and smiled. Not normal. The same horrible smile. I backed away from the screen in shock. No. Daniel looked terrified now. It copied you already? The fake version of me on the monitor slowly stepped closer to the camera. Then it spoke in my exact voice. You should have stayed home. The barricaded door behind us suddenly bent inward with a deafening metallic scream. The smiling crowd was breaking through. Daniel grabbed my arm again. There's one way out. Where? He pointed deeper into the corridor toward a giant steel blast door marked with faded warning symbols. The lower transmitter. Another violent impact shook the hallway. Metal snapped behind us. Hands began reaching through the cracks in the barricaded door. Hundreds of fingers twitching unnaturally. The fake version of me on the monitor smiled wider. Then all the screens changed to the same message. The signal is ready to broadcast. And somewhere deep beneath the facility, something enormous screamed through the static. End of Part 5. Part 6, the broadcast chamber. The scream beneath the facility didn't sound human. It sounded mechanical. Ancient. Like metal grinding against flesh somewhere deep underground. The entire corridor trembled violently as red emergency lights flashed overhead. Daniel grabbed my jacket. Run. The barricaded door behind us exploded inward. The smiling crowd poured into the hallway. Not rushing. Not screaming. Just walking toward us in perfect silence. Hundreds of emotionless faces. Hundreds of identical smiles. I fired 2 shots blindly behind us as we sprinted deeper into the corridor. The bullets barely slowed them. One man collapsed instantly, but then stood back up seconds later, head twitching unnaturally. Daniel, what are they? They're empty now. We rounded a corner and nearly slipped on water leaking across the floor from broken pipes above. The deeper we descended, the hotter the air became. Static crackled constantly through hidden speakers around us now, and beneath the noise, I could hear whispers. Thousands of whispers layered together. Some sounded familiar. Others sounded completely inhuman. Then I heard my own voice among them. Ethan. I froze for half a second. The voice sounded terrified. Help me. Daniel immediately grabbed my shoulder. Don't answer it. But that was me. It's learning faster now. The corridor ahead opened into a gigantic circular chamber. I stopped cold. This place was even larger than the room above. Massive antennas stretched upward into darkness while giant rotating transmitters hummed along the walls. Thick cables hung from the ceiling like vines, all connected to a towering machine at the center. A machine broadcasting static loud enough to vibrate in my chest. Above it all hung a giant digital countdown clock. 12 minutes and 44 seconds. The numbers were ticking downward. What is that? I asked. Daniel looked sick. The broadcast. The countdown continued falling. 12 minutes and 43 seconds. 12 minutes and 42 seconds. When it reaches 0, he whispered, the signal goes public. A cold wave passed through my entire body. You mean the internet? He nodded. Phones, radios, TVs, emergency systems. Everything. I stared at the machine in horror. If that thing spreads, it won't stop. The static around us suddenly intensified. Every monitor in the chamber flickered on simultaneously, and every screen showed the same image. My apartment. The fake version of me still stood there smiling into the camera. Except now, it wasn't alone. More copies stood behind it. Copies of random people. Some faceless. Some unfinished. Their bodies glitched unnaturally like corrupted video footage. The fake me tilted its head slowly. Then it spoke directly to us through the monitor. You cannot disconnect what already heard the signal. Daniel pulled me toward a control station near the center platform. There's a kill switch somewhere in this room. The countdown kept falling. 11 minutes and 18 seconds. Suddenly, alarms erupted overhead. A distorted voice echoed through the chamber. Containment failure detected. The static screaming from the machine grew louder. Then something moved above us. I looked upward slowly. Shapes crawled across the ceiling. Dozens of them. Faceless creatures clinging upside down like insects. Their long limbs twisted unnaturally as they moved toward us through the darkness. One dropped from the ceiling directly behind Daniel. I fired instantly. The creature slammed sideways into a control panel with a wet crack. But instead of blood, black static poured from the wound. The creature twitched violently on the floor before crawling backward into darkness again. Daniel found a terminal screen covered in old commands. I found the shutdown controls. The smiling crowd began entering the chamber behind us now. Hundreds of synchronized footsteps echoed closer and closer. The countdown continued. 9 minutes and 52 seconds. Daniel typed frantically into the terminal, then suddenly stopped. His face turned pale. What? He looked at me slowly. There are 2 transmitters. What does that mean? The tower above is only half the signal. A deep metallic groan echoed somewhere beneath the floor. Daniel's eyes widened. The real transmitter is below us. The floor trembled violently. Then part of the chamber split open near the center platform. A massive circular shaft descended into darkness beneath the facility. Hot air blasted upward carrying the smell of rust and burning wires. And from deep below, I heard breathing. Slow, massive, alive. The fake version of me suddenly appeared on every screen again. This time smiling wider than ever. You finally came far enough. The smiling crowd stopped moving behind us. Every single one of them turned toward the giant shaft opening, like they were waiting for something. Then the whispers stopped completely. Silence filled the chamber. And slowly, something began climbing upward from the darkness below. One enormous hand wrapped around the edge of the shaft. Its fingers were far too long. Its skin looked gray and stretched tight over something moving underneath. Another hand appeared beside it. Then a head slowly rose into view. At first it looked human, until its face split open vertically down the center, revealing a wall of vibrating static instead of flesh. The creature opened its mouth, and every screen in the chamber instantly turned black. Then white text appeared across all of them. The signal has chosen you. The countdown hit. 8 minutes. End of part 6. Part 7. The thing inside the signal. Nobody moved. Not me. Not Daniel. Not even the smiling crowd behind us. The gigantic creature continued pulling itself upward from the shaft beneath the chamber, its massive gray hands gripping the metal edges hard enough to bend them inward. Every movement it made caused the floor to vibrate. Its face remained split vertically open, revealing that impossible wall of flickering static inside instead of flesh. And somehow, I could hear voices coming from inside its mouth. Thousands of them, all talking at once. The whispers filled my skull instantly. Ethan, you already belong to us. Listen closer. I staggered backward, covering my ears. But the voices weren't coming from outside anymore. They were inside my head. Daniel grabbed the side of the terminal for balance. Blood was dripping slowly from his nose. It's trying to synchronize with you, he whispered. What does that mean? Before he could answer, every monitor in the chamber flashed violently. Images exploded across the screens faster than my brain could process. Missing people, emergency broadcasts, security footage, old VHS recordings, faces screaming directly into cameras. Then one image remained, a video dated 19 years earlier. The screen showed the same underground chamber we stood in now, except it looked clean back then. New equipment, bright lights, people in lab coats, scientists. One of them stood in front of the camera nervously. We have confirmed the signal is not extraterrestrial, he said shakily. It behaves more like a living frequency. Behind him, workers adjusted giant radio dishes surrounding the machine. Then the recording glitched briefly. When the image returned, everyone in the room had stopped moving. The scientist slowly turned toward the camera, smiling. The exact same smile. My chest tightened. Oh my God. Daniel pointed at the screen. That was the first broadcast. The video continued. The smiling scientist stepped closer to the camera until his face nearly filled the screen. Then he whispered, "It heard us first." The footage ended abruptly in static. A loud metallic scream echoed through the chamber behind us. The creature had fully emerged from the shaft now. It stood at least 15 feet tall, its body stretched unnaturally thin beneath twitching gray skin. Wires hung from its back like veins plugged directly into the machinery below. And its face, that wall of living static, kept moving inside the split opening like thousands of tiny screaming faces trapped together. The smiling crowd suddenly dropped to their knees around the chamber. All at once, like worshippers. The creature slowly turned toward me. Then it spoke using dozens of overlapping voices. You were easier to copy than the others. The fake version of me appeared again across every monitor. Except now it wasn't standing inside my apartment anymore. It was standing somewhere in this facility. Much closer. Daniel typed frantically at the terminal. There's still a shutdown sequence, he said desperately. But somebody has to activate it manually from below. I looked toward the giant shaft. You mean down there? He nodded slowly. The core signal is underneath the chamber. The creature took another step toward us. Every light overhead flickered violently. Its static-filled face twisted unnaturally as more voices spilled from inside it. The signal spreads through memory. Suddenly I saw flashes in my head. Not visions. Memories, but not mine. I saw strangers sitting alone at computers. People answering mysterious phone calls. Late-night radio hosts. Emergency operators. Missing hikers. People staring into static-filled televisions before smiling exactly like the others. Then I saw Daniel, years ago, locked inside a room beneath the tower, listening to endless static through giant headphones while scientists observed him behind glass. "They experimented on you," I whispered. Daniel looked away. "I was one of the first survivors." Another memory slammed into my head. Daniel screaming while something whispered into his ear from inside the static. Then another. A scientist cutting his own face open while smiling into a security camera. I dropped to one knee, gasping. The creature stepped closer. "You can hear us now." Daniel suddenly grabbed my shoulders hard. "Ethan, listen to me." His voice barely cut through the static. "If that thing finishes the broadcast, everyone connected to a screen becomes vulnerable." The countdown clock flashed overhead. 3 minutes and 11 seconds. 3 minutes left. The fake version of me suddenly stepped out from a dark hallway on the far side of the chamber. Not a screen. Real. Or at least physically real. It smiled at me exactly the way I smiled. Same posture. Same face. Same voice. "You don't need him anymore." I stared at it in horror. The copy tilted its head slightly. Then its smile widened far beyond what human skin should allow. Daniel raised the revolver instantly and fired. The bullet tore through the copy's shoulder. But instead of blood, static burst from the wound. The fake me twitched violently before sprinting toward us unnaturally fast. Not running. Glitching forward. Daniel shoved me aside as the copy slammed into him. Both of them crashed against the terminal controls. Sparks exploded everywhere. The shutdown sequence screen vanished instantly. "No!" Daniel shouted. The fake version of me wrapped its hands around his throat while smiling directly at me. Then the creature near the shaft spoke again. And this time, it used my mother's voice. "Nathan, come closer." The countdown hit. 2 minutes, and the entire chamber suddenly went dark. End of Part 7. Part 8, the last broadcast. Darkness swallowed the chamber instantly. The giant countdown clock was the only thing still visible above us. 1 minute and 59 seconds. Red numbers glowing through the black. Then the whispers returned, louder than ever. Thousands of voices crawling through my mind all at once. "Ethan, don't fight it. You already listened." I could barely breathe. Somewhere nearby, metal crashed violently against concrete. Daniel was still struggling with the copy of me somewhere in the dark. Then came the sound of bones snapping, followed by silence. "Daniel?" I shouted. No answer. The static around the chamber intensified until it sounded like a hurricane screaming inside my skull. Then emergency backup lights flickered dimly back on, and what I saw nearly broke me. Daniel lay motionless beside the destroyed terminal. Blood spread slowly beneath him. The fake version of me stood over his body smiling. Except now its face kept glitching unnaturally. Different faces flickered across it every few seconds. Daniel's, my mother's, complete strangers. The thing tilted its head toward me. "You cannot stop the signal," it said calmly. Behind it, the giant creature near the shaft slowly raised one enormous arm toward the ceiling antennas. The smiling crowd around the chamber remained kneeling in worship. The countdown continued. 1 minute and 21 seconds. I backed away slowly, gripping the revolver so hard my fingers hurt. Then Daniel moved. Barely. He lifted one shaking hand toward me and whispered, "The core." I looked toward the giant shaft beneath the chamber. Hot air still blasted upward from below. The real transmitter. The heart of the signal. Daniel coughed blood weakly. "You have to destroy it." The fake version of me smiled wider. "He dies either way." Then it sprinted toward me. Fast. Unnaturally fast. I fired instantly. The bullet shattered part of its jaw, spraying black static across the floor. But it kept moving. I barely dodged as it slammed into me, throwing both of us across the chamber floor. Its hands wrapped around my throat immediately. Ice cold. Far too strong. Up close, I could see the thing's skin moving slightly beneath the surface. Like static was alive underneath it. The creature leaned close to my face and whispered in my own voice, "We were already inside your mind before the email." My vision darkened as it squeezed harder. Then suddenly, bang! The copy's head snapped sideways. Daniel had fired the revolver from the floor. The fake version of me stumbled backward, static exploding from its face. Daniel screamed at me with the last strength he had left. "Go!" The giant creature near the shaft turned toward us instantly. Its static-filled face split wider open, and every screen in the chamber suddenly flashed the same message. Final synchronization. The countdown hit. 58 seconds. I ran. straight toward the shaft. The heat became unbearable near the edge. Giant cables disappeared downward into darkness below while the machine beneath us roared louder and louder. Behind me, the fake version of me screamed in rage. Not human anymore. Pure distorted static. The giant creature began moving toward the shaft too, trying to stop me. I spotted a maintenance ladder bolted along the inner wall leading downward into the core, and I climbed fast. The deeper I descended, the louder the whispers became. Not whispers anymore. Screaming. The walls themselves vibrated with static energy. Then I reached the bottom. The core transmitter stood directly beneath the chamber, a massive rotating structure surrounded by thousands of tangled wires feeding upward into the antennas above. At the center pulsed a sphere of living static, like a black hole made of noise, and inside it, faces. Thousands of screaming human faces trapped within the signal. The countdown above echoed through hidden speakers. 31 seconds. The giant creature began descending after me. The ladder shook violently beneath its weight. I searched desperately around the platform until I found a fuel line connected to emergency generators. An idea hit me instantly. I grabbed the revolver, shot the fuel pipe. Gasoline sprayed across the machinery. The creature screamed behind me as it climbed closer. Its face kept splitting wider and wider open. The countdown reached 15 seconds. I pulled a flare from the emergency wall kit nearby. My hands trembled violently. The creature lunged toward me, and for one horrifying second, I saw Daniel's face inside the static creature's mouth screaming for help. Then I lit the flare. 7 seconds. The creature reached for me. 5 seconds. The whispers became deafening. 3 seconds. I threw the flare into the fuel, and the world exploded. White fire erupted through the transmitter core instantly. The chamber above shook violently as antennas collapsed and machinery detonated around me. The creature screamed with thousands of human voices at once. Then the static suddenly stopped. Completely. Silence. Pure silence. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital. The police found the radio tower destroyed after locals reported an explosion in the forest. No underground facility was ever discovered. No tunnels. No machines. Nothing. The doctors told me Daniel died in the fire, but they never found his body. Sometimes, late at night, my television still turns on by itself. Only static. And every now and then, I hear a familiar voice inside it whispering, "Ethan." Last week I got another email. No sender. No subject. Only one line. The signal survived. End of part 8. Thanks for listening to this true dark web horror story. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more dark horror stories every week. And remember, some links are never meant to be opened.